Hi there, welcome to Games Over Qualia. My name is Devon. These videos work in 3 different parts. First, you send me your game and you fill out this form about your intended experience. Second, I'll play the game completely blind and then I explain what I think the game was trying to do. Third, I compare my blind experience with your intended experience and we'll see if they align or if they don't. Today's game is called Survivor TD by Cartable Studio. I'm going to play this game blind. I'll come back. We'll talk about it. I tried playing it 2 different ways. I tried playing it the way that I thought was intended, and then I played it a different way. And I think the different way worked a lot better. Okay, I just played Survivor TD. These are my first impressions. To begin with, I don't like tower defense games. They feel stressful to me. The reason why I feel stressed about these things, I'm sure I'll say this many more times, is that every time that I play one of these games, I feel like I have to think about everything all at once. And I know I don't have to. It's just the way my brain works. The game feels competent and it feels rather light. It feels, like a tower defense game. When I was playing this game, there's a really cool thing that you can do when you're this character in the middle. I haven't played a whole lot of tower defense games, so this idea of controlling a character in the middle and that's who all the enemies are coming toward to kill, that's really interesting to me. I haven't seen a whole lot of that before. Usually it's like some sort of base that's in the middle or something that you're trying to defend. This idea of having all the enemies follow you and you're the one who's in danger and the towers are the things that are protecting you, that's really interesting, and I haven't seen that before. But I tried playing it 2 different ways. I tried playing it the way that I thought was intended, and then I played it a different way. And I think the different way worked a lot better, and I thought that was really interesting. So how I think this developer intended the gameplay was like a tower defense gameplay, like your regular tower defense. As soon as you click start, it shows you in the center of a bunch of different tiles, and all the tiles look like they're set up in a specific way, and then they all blow up. So it looks as if the developer is saying, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. Why don't you go ahead and try it? I played it a few times like that, and it felt not very fun, and it felt kind of stale, but that changed. And the reason why it changed was because of my mindset, because I changed the way that I thought about the game. First, I did like these towers where I set up kind of like a tunnel for the enemies to come through. I started to move because they were getting out of that tunnel, and then I went back through the tunnel and went through it again and had them follow me through the tunnel again. And I was like, oh, dude, I can lure enemies like to other places. And so what I ended up doing was I built towers so that they were just single towers, right? So like I started with just a rotating tower with 2 puddles around it. And basically I just walked around the tower and as enemies were following me, they just kept getting hit by the orbs. And I was like, dude, this feels way better. It like now I'm trying to kill the enemies as opposed to trying to defend myself, right? I'm not trying to survive anymore. Now I'm attacking. Like I'm straight up using like that vampire survivors like mentality where I'm trying to kill enemies in this passive way. And I thought that was really cool. And it made me build towers in a different way. It made me think about the game in a different way. Now, obviously, this is just me. Typically, I don't like tower defense games, so it makes sense that this more action-oriented kind of way of thinking about it would make me feel better about the game. But this is just how I felt about it. But this reminded me of the way that Vampire Survivors works. Because when I first played Vampire Survivors, I thought it was kind of fun, but it felt kind of samey, where I would just play the game and I would try to survive by evading all of these enemies, right? There's a bunch of enemies that are following you, and I just tried to get away from them. And then every now and then I would upgrade, but every time that would happen, that would slow down the game, right? I didn't know it at the time, but that's what was happening. I was slowing down the game. I was slowing down the gameplay loop. The gameplay loop is to upgrade, attack, and it's just a lot of that. But instead, I was evading. So because I was evading, I was like not doing the attack part. I was upgrading and then evade until sometimes I get enough experience points on maybe accident because, I'm not going towards the enemy. So when I get the upgrades and I'm like, oh, great, I have a stronger weapon. Now I can keep trying to move away from them, but now I have a stronger weapon. So every time I thought about surviving as opposed to attacking, the game felt boring. It didn't feel like there was much to do. But when I got it in my head to, oh, you know what? I should try attacking instead. I should try attacking these enemies. And it could have been, I don't know why I didn't think about that first. It makes complete sense now. But it's in the name, right? Vampire Survivors. I'm trying to think of surviving, you would want to evade enemies. But anyway, but when I changed my mindset to think about this in terms of attacking, then suddenly the gameplay loop like revealed itself to me. And I'm like, oh, damn, yeah, this works out a lot better. I'm able to attack these enemies. I'm able to get these gems, upgrade my weapons, and then continue on that game loop, right? And now Vampire Survivors is like one of my favorite games, and I keep going back to it. And I've unlocked so much more. And it's all because of my mindset change, right? Before, when I was just surviving, it was like 15 to 20 minutes per gameplay. And that was it. Like I would always die within 15 to 20 minutes because I was evading. Because again, I was slowing down that loop. But because I changed to this attack mode, suddenly, I'm always surviving until the end, almost all the time. And it really changed my outlook on the game. It's really interesting that the game didn't change, obviously. My mindset did. And I thought that was really, really cool. The same thing, I think, even goes for the game Downwell. If you've played Downwell before, Downwell is like that, a roguelike action game where you hop on enemies as you go down the well. And for me, I've never completed the game, but it's a lot of fun when I don't complete the game. And the reason why is because I like stringing together combos, because that feels like it's a skill that I'm building up, right? That game, to me, feels like it's very well built for stringing together combos, because you get a lot more bonuses and upgrades and multipliers when you are hopping on enemies, and it builds up a really gratifying type of skill. And so when I'm doing that in Downwell, it's harder to progress. Now, if I just wanted to kill enemies without thinking about combos at all, it'd probably be a lot easier and probably be able to complete the game pretty easily. But stringing together these combos is a lot more fun for me. So I don't really care about the other stuff. So it's just more interesting and it makes me more engaged. So when I was thinking about Survivor TD in this sense, I was thinking about it in terms of attacking, right? I'd like to set up my towers in a way to where they provide a path for me and not the enemies. So the enemies come in and then I just start walking around my towers in a very specific pattern and they all start getting hit in the way that I want them to get hit. Now, the reason why I think this works out so well in terms of game design is because in this one, they drop gems, right? Or these little, I think they're gems. You have to collect them, I think. I don't remember if you have to collect them or not. Anyway, it seemed like I was collecting a lot more gems when I was killing the enemies, and then I would walk up to them and collect them. That's where it brought me to that Vampire Survivors-like mentality, when I'm like, oh, let's try to kill them, right, instead of trying to survive. Then I'll be able to, get that game loop going, and it feels good, because now what happens is I get these gems, and now I'm able to buy a lot more things. So before, whenever I would just survive one of these things, and not move to attack my enemies, what would happen is I would get maybe 10 to 16 gems per run or something like that, and that's enough to buy maybe a tower, and that's about it, or just a puddle or two. And it doesn't do enough, right? It doesn't do enough to survive this onslaught of enemies because there's so many enemies. So I felt like the game really worked out for me when I was looking at it in that way. So now I'm curious about how the developer wanted the game to be, and we'll compare what I thought with what they said. So it definitely seems like my experience was not the intended experience. These are some people who have donated. I really appreciate you guys. This channel completely runs on donations. There's a link in the description to buy me a coffee or join Patreon if you want. There's bonus content, of course. I really appreciate it. All right, so my first question was, what were you hoping that the player would feel while playing your game? This developer provided very detailed answers, but also had very sporadic different types of thoughts. So it was difficult for me to read the entire thing. So I'm going to display the text on screen here, and then I have a small AI summary for me to read. However, I do always read what the developers write. This AI summary is just for your convenience as a viewer. Here's what the dev said, and the AI summary is, I wanted players to feel smart and creative by designing efficient mazes and discovering strong builds through experimentation, including hidden mechanics like the wall knockback damage. The game is meant to make players feel weak at first, but powerful over time, ending with a sense of excitement and frustration that makes them want more after the demo. My second question was, why did you choose this experience? Here's what the dev said, and here's the AI summary. I made this game to prove my commitment to becoming a professional game developer and to showcase my skills with a complete project. I chose this genre because I love survivor games, and I wanted to challenge myself by blending them with tower defense into something new. My third question was, were there any specific moments, mechanics, or ideas that you built around that emotional goal? This dev said, the feelings are not quite well finished. I need to work more on the balancing and have a feeling of progression throughout the same run. Also, the never-ending polish to make game juicy enough to be cool to play. So it definitely seems like my experience was not the intended experience. I didn't even make the connection between Survivor and tower defense. Like the fact that you put those two genres together is what made this game, which would make sense because that's what I was talking about with the Vampire Survivors and everything. That it makes sense that my mindset switched, and it switched with this game too. That's so cool that's what happened. Okay, so it seems like what you've made then is this game that you're trying to practice basically game design, and you're trying to create this two different types of genres of game together and create something that's fun and interesting to play, which is cool. I like the idea of having a fun, interesting idea to just go on and try to practice and try to make something that's good. I've heard that like your 10th game is supposed to be your good one, right? After 10 bad games, you're making a good one. So your 11th game, I guess. It seems like what you're thinking about here is making a pretty generic game. I know you have a vision here, and I know your vision is to, combine Survivor and tower defense. And I think that works in terms of what it was that I experience. Like that really that experience for me of changing my mindset and like changing my attack patterns in here to attacking rather than surviving, I think is a really cool thing, and I think that would really work quite well. But it doesn't seem like that's what you were trying to do. It seems like what you were trying to do was create a situation that starts maybe as a survivor and then, like you said, slowly works itself into a tower defense where the person doesn't need to move a whole lot. I feel like, why even have that goal? Because that goal is a tower defense goal. And if you want to practice, I think that's great. If you want to create a game just for the practice of creating a tower defense game, that's great. And I think you should do that. But I do see a more unique kind of game in here. And that core game loop, the one that I interacted with, where I'm going throughout the towers by myself to lure enemies to their deaths, that feels a lot more interesting to me. I guess I would ask, why did you want to create the mashing of two genres together? Was it just to practice, and was that it? Because it seems like the experience that you wanted the player to have is already accessible by playing any other tower defense game. So what makes yours interesting to you? And I'm not saying that your game needs to be unique, because no, games don't need to be unique, but they need to be an expression of the person who's creating them. Meaning, are you creating this game because you wanted to create it for you, for a reason that you had? Or did you want to create this game because you saw other games that did this kind of thing and you wanted to do that kind of thing? While I was recording the video, I didn't really get this out there, so I wanted to clarify a little bit more. One of the things that I come across all the time in these developer things, these answers that developers give me, a lot of the emotions that they attribute to their game is stuck within the genre, meaning that when someone submits, say, a first-person shooter, they think about emotions in terms of what first-person shooters should deliver. I feel like that's what a lot of people do when they submit their game, is they're not typically thinking about the emotion, they're typically thinking about the system, which makes sense because most developers create games in terms of a system, like they need to create rules and structure for their game to take place and thus create an experience after the fact. It's not necessarily an experience that you have first and then create it into a game. It's a game first and then has an experience afterwards. Now, there's no wrong way to do it. I think both ways can be great in their own way. But my thing here is that what I experienced here in this game felt a little bit more generic and didn't really feel like there was a potent feeling, except for that feeling that I described earlier, where I did feel like there was this really interesting way of thinking about the game that kind of changed the way that I played it. When I look back at this developer's last answer for my questions, they had said something about how their emotional experience wasn't finished yet due to balancing. I want to say that that's not the right way to look at things. And the reason why is because I think when you're balancing a system, when you're creating some sort of structure, you might have rough edges here and there, but the core experience is provided. You could think about this in terms of plot holes in movies. Whenever you see a movie, it might have a really good structure, but maybe there's some plot holes here and there, but does that change the experience that the viewer gets from watching the movie? Unless you're someone who just really, really likes to fixate on structure, if you were to patch all of those plot holes, would that make the movie better? My argument is no. You can already see, big franchises and movies like Stranger Things, for example, or Star Wars, things that are really, really popular, there's plenty of plot holes in both Star Wars and Stranger Things and, many other movies that are loved. And that doesn't make them any worse. So if you were to patch all of them, you wouldn't have made the movie better. Now it's a more clear way to see the experience. So here in this system for Survivor TD, the emotions that you're trying to express here, I don't think they'd be better if you made the game more balanced. I think what you're trying to do would be more identifiable, perhaps, but the core experience that you've created here, I think would be essentially the same. And that's what I'm trying to get at here, is that when I'm playing the game, what I'm feeling is a sense of generic gameplay. And it's not generic because I've seen it many times before. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that it feels like it was a system that was built for the purpose of practice, which it does seem to be. That's why you built the system. So it would make sense that that's what I'm feeling. So just know that when you're creating something like this, when I'm playing your game, I only feel a system. And if you make it better, you make the system more balanced. That's what I'm going to feel, is a more balanced system. I'm not going to feel more emotions. I'm not going to feel more potent emotions. I'm not going to have more fun. It's just going to be a clearer understanding, at least from my perspective. Right? I don't represent everybody. I'm just represent myself. That's the only thing I can do. So thank you so much to this developer for submitting this game. If you have a game and you want to submit it, you can do so. There's a link in the description. To be perfectly transparent, I'm almost booked up for the entire year. I only have around 10 slots left. I'll probably still take games afterwards, but I want to, make sure that I'm not burning myself out. So by the time I get to the end of the year, then we'll, re-up. I'll probably have a wait list. There's a Discord in the description if you want to talk with other game developers or me about game design topics. I also have a podcast called GOQ Talk that is a Patreon exclusive, but there's a free episode every month. So check that out if you'd like. There's a link in the description. And that's it. So I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.